So before we finish with our authentication, let's do a bit of cleaning up. I'm going to remove these comments that we don't need it anymore. I use the prettier as well to format it. So now in the model, I'm going to do the same. For the imports, you should always try to keep like third-party libraries and then your application stuff separated, so you can have an idea just by looking at it. So here we have the user model on the top. This is not necessarily, but it's nice to keep it organized so you can easily see what's going on in your application. So this one is fine. One is also okay. Here in the middleware, just add a comment for this one explaining what it does. Got async errors, not found, validate access token, and check if user is admin. So here in the main route, we have our first, let's fix this imports. Here we are importing the controller from the user and from the user route over here. So we can do something different. Let's do on the controller, instead of exporting the default here, we're just going to export that controller from here on the top. Export like this, and that. Here we're exporting like this as well, and on the router like that. So we can create an index file over here, index.js, and we can do export star from user model router and controllers. So now here it's going to open the terminal so we can see the errors coming up. Export defaulting model ES6. Yeah, it's because here's a default export without the curly braces. So what we can do, because we create the index, here on the routes we can remove this user. So we can just call the users over there and this will work. Now we can do the same for the users controller, but we can add it inside of here and remove this one. So like this we can keep our imports much more organized. Here we're exporting everything from these models and controllers. User router.js now is complaining on the router because we fixed over there, but we didn't fix over here. So we can just import it like this. And now it's running again. So remember, with curly braces, we do this type of exports. And then if you don't want to add the curly brace, you need to do a default export. So let's continue. Now that we have this index, we can just go back. We're going to Our middlewares were done. The routers, now we have this user and user controller. The shot route, it's okay like this. Here we have our app routes and the authentication, and we have this user route over here. So let's move it down so you can put the sign up together with the signing. And here I'm going to create one more because I have a get request for signing. We need a get request for the sign up so we can display a form when you're going to be doing the front end. Sign up. So signing form, the function that's going to run that form, sign up form, and the function that runs the form. And then we have our user, which we're actually using the authorization middleware to allow only that user to see their data. And the function itself will get whoever is signing information. So this one is an external library, so I'm gonna put up here on the top. And now we have our application. We can do the same for the shot. We can create the index, so we can remove this bit over here. So let's do that right now. Index.js, and here export everything from controller, router, and model. I'm just gonna leave it in alphabetic order. So now here we can remove that last bit, and it should work. So router is done, middleware is done. Now let's tackle our controllers. Here we need to export, and in the end we need to remove this default. Now it's gonna crash, and here it is in the router. So here we need to add the curly braces. Everything else is fine. In the models, those imports are fine. Okay. For user, we have this. Controllers. Controllers are okay now. User model. Everything seems fine. The router we just did. So our resources are ready. Let's check out our application. Okay, so now we have this database function. Let's refactor this database function to use async await. So all of this is going to be the same. Remember, every function that returns a promise, you can make it async await. So here it's going to call async, and then I'm going to create a try catch so we can get the error just in case. This error I'm going to move over here. Removing this catch, so it's just the console log left. And here, this two, I'm gonna move it inside the try, which is instead of the return, I'm gonna await to connect it to the database, and then if it's alright, we're just gonna console log that. So it's quite similar, but a little bit better. Now we can, instead of exporting like this, we can export the default, because this is the only thing we're creating on this function, on this file. So export default database connect. Now we need to fix this import of the database, because we refactored to be a default, so we need to remove the curly braces over here. Then when you do that, everything is running as it was before. Let's commit everything to Git so we can move on. Git status. We have two new files, the index that we create. So let's do git commit with a message, refactor code plus cleanup.